Welcome to Jeff's Journey, episode 76, I believe we're on, which is kind of crazy. Let's start out talking about food, and then we'll move on to books, and then exactly one bajillion other things. So first of all, my genius plan this morning was to start boiling beef ribs, because I'd boil them for 2 hours, and then I have a specific system for making ribs. I make pork ribs and beef ribs the same. I think pork ribs are a little bit better, but I try to get beef ribs every now and then for the different nutrient profile, because there are a lot of weeks where 5 days a week I eat barbecued ribs. And so my idea was to get those going and then start teaching, which I did this morning. And I forgot about them. So instead of boiling them for 2 hours, they boiled for 2.5 hours before I turned them off. And they're definitely falling apart. Luckily, beef ribs are a little bit stronger, so it won't be too bad. But they're a little bit smaller than I would like. There's not very much broth left, most of it boiled out. I have to run the dehumidifier afterwards to get all the moisture out of there of the house, because now we've had to close all the windows since it's getting cold in Michigan. And some of my kids are amazed by this. Some of the Chinese kids, they're like, "Oh, 6 degrees Celsius, it's like so cold." Yes, the summer is not long in Michigan. Also, Mom got me a tea kettle. She got me a tea kettle for Christmas. It arrived in the mail, so it's just a plain brown box. And then I brought it in, and she's like, "Oh, I don't want you looking at that." And I'm like, "Oh, is it a tea kettle?" Because I've been talking about getting a new tea kettle recently. She has this one from like 40 years ago that I normally use. And I make ginger tea basically every day. Mix it with some honey. Good stuff. And so I got the Christmas gift early. Might as well. Like, why not? I can use it for a few months before then. That sucker whistles so loud. It's pretty crazy. I also went to TJ Maxx yesterday, and I buy different honeys. I like trying different honeys. Some honeys are good. I mean, some honeys are amazing. Some honeys are not good. Some honeys are bad. And all in between. So I bought this orange blossom French honey from TJ Maxx, or Home Goods. I think it was Home Goods one day. And it was amazing. It went with the ginger tea so good, and it wasn't even very expensive. So I used it up kind of quick. Just a little bottle. It's only like $4 or something. So I went back, and they had 3 bottles left, because you want to get the exact same one. Even if you get the honey from the same place the next year, from year to year, the flavor of honey can change a lot, can change significantly. So I went and bought the 3 bottles they had left. 1 bottle of the same company's regular, and we'll see how that goes too. But yeah, I've been drinking a lot of ginger honey tea. And I get some Traverse City honey as well, and that's pretty good at local farm I go to, which they just had a party in the pasture, their first one. They had a band and stuff. And I went there to get my milk on Sundays, and I forgot this thing is going on. They got like cars backed up into the road and everything in North Muskegon going to this party. So I just parked on the side of the road, had to walk in. One girl she was like, "Do you need to be stamped for the party?" I'm like, no. Just trying to get milk. So it looks like that event went off well. I've noticed that iodine seems to be helping a lot. Like, I have to cycle on the iodine. I have to stay on the iodine. And I didn't do my heart rate this morning, unfortunately. I try to do that. I try to get heart rate, blood pressure, and grip strength every morning. But like this morning, I was focused on getting the ribs going, and then I had to work, so I missed it this morning. Maybe I'll do it later, but it's better if you get the reading at the exact same time, if you can. But like yesterday, my heart rate was 87. Now my left grip strength was 94.8 pounds, and my right grip strength was 100 pounds even. That's almost the highest it's ever been since I've really been tracking it pretty good. And my blood pressure was 131/84. So those numbers are not bad yesterday. Obviously, 87 heart rate is a lot higher than you want, but that's, as far as my numbers, that's pretty good. The day before, my heart rate was 92, grip strength was 85 and 88 respectively. Blood pressure was 130/85. The day before, I missed that entire day. I must have been doing something in the morning. The day before, my heart rate was 90. Grip strength was 94 pounds, 95 pounds, so pretty darn strong compared to me. I mean, normal grip strength, I have weak grip strength, which, I'm wondering if it's because of different nerve alignment, essentially. And blood pressure was 135/87. The day before, heart rate was 87, grip strength 94. Oh, no, went the wrong way. Never mind. Anyways, all right, you get the point that it hasn't been bad recently, and I feel so much better when my heart rate is down. If I could get my heart rate consistently down in the 70s or 60s like a normal person, I can't imagine how good I would feel. Like the energy, going from 100 heart rate into the high to mid 80s is like taking an injection of Energizer. So going from the 80s to the 60s would be, I think it would be mind-blowing. I would like to do that, but I'm not sure if I can make it happen. Let's see. I have some other notes on here because I've been, just in between these videos, I can take notes on, there's some stuff that's happening, maybe some stuff I should go over, and so we might come across more. But books, all right. I got done reading this book, A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, and it is amazing. It's super good psychology, like Jungian archetypal psychology is amazing. So I'm going to read the rest of that series for sure. That one's super good. And then I put a thing on the reading group online, one of my reading groups online. All right, on Facebook, I mostly belong to health groups, philosophy groups, psychology groups, reading groups, and history groups. It's most of my feed. So it's interesting. And in one of the, or a couple of the reading groups, maybe I put something like, the greatest hero ever is blank because blank. And I got a lot of responses I did not expect. And a response that came up a lot was Druss the legend, because he's like never faltering and all this stuff. I never heard of the guy. I read a lot. There's a lot of people that read a lot, and then it's amazing how much you don't know about because you can't. Right? There's 130 million book titles in existence. There's like a million new books published every year or something. You're not going to keep up. So I never heard of this guy, never heard of this series. And it's fantasy, but not the craziest fantasy. It's super interesting. And Legend by David Gemmell, and it's part of a series. And this axe guy is Druss. Super good. I just started reading it a couple of days ago. I'm about halfway into that book, and I like it a lot. So it was a good recommendation, good way to possibly get recommendations. A lot of people get on there and they're like, give me a book recommendation. Well, no one knows what kind of book you want to read, man. You got to include a list of books that you like, or something to frame it like that, some sort of language or idea frame. And I was looking for a book about a hero, essentially, that is super heroic, that doesn't have a bunch of internal ambivalence and stuff like this necessarily. So, and he is, Druss works out as a super good, like, kind of classic hero. My new computer is working now. This new computer is like several months old, but I've been using it more and more because the other computer is really shot. It's over there. It's still kind of working, but it's all taped together, and I'm always I'm afraid to touch it because it might fall apart. So that technology is working good. And then my phone too, which is a new phone. It's not a new phone. It's a new phone for me. Is a Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, right? So it's got this little curved edge for an extended screen thing. It's a weird idea that has seen its time, right? It's not coming back around. That's going away because people didn't like it in general. They had a lot of issues with touching the edge for some reason. But I think a lot of it was they didn't have good cases at the time it originally came out. And now this case had really good reviews, so that's why I bought this case. And it works excellent. I have no problem with the screen at all. I got that from my cousin Raymond, which works out good. He likes his phones, so he has extras, which is pretty crazy. Lena's party, Jessica and Shane's daughter, went very good. It was good to see the family down in Grand Haven and whatnot. And just recently, just a few days ago, Shane came over and switched out the cabinet in Mom's kitchen, which is interesting. It was an interesting decision, I think, to do it. Me and my Aunt Karen and I went, how was I supposed to go? Went to the music house up by Traverse City. That place was amazing. I can't remember the numbers because it's been quite a while since we went there and did that, like a couple of weeks. But they had some crazy stuff there, like from the 1800s, in a machine that automatically plays a violin. I didn't even know that was a thing, like a physical violin. This old machine just plays it. They had huge organs, huge crazy organs, cool stuff. The music house was definitely an awesome trip. I thought it would be cool. I'm interested in a lot of stuff, but it was better than I even realized. Let's see. Kristen and I had at one time a little tiff over the kids, but no big deal there. Oh, neck braces. We have to go over neck braces. All right, here we go. I'm going to grab a neck brace real quick. Dun, 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 dun. Ta-ding! So, there's one neck brace, right? The traditional, like, medic. These are the ones where we use something like this. In when I was doing paramedic training, right? Something like that. Dun, dun, dun. So the idea is here that if I'm going to do some adventures, if I'm going to get some adventures in, because my expected lifetime statistically, which I think this might hold relatively well because we're seeing such a high heart rate in me and stuff still, and maybe that's permanent damage, right? Maybe that's permanent damage to the brain stem. So even nerve tissue can repair itself to a certain extent, but it's very slow and it can be a limited process. And not everything in your body can repair itself. That's why you age, right? That's why if you get eye damage, it doesn't go away. Some of your eye cells don't even have nuclei anymore, so they can't replicate. Which means that if my expected lifetime statistically is between 5 and 15 years from now, right? So if I have 5 to 15 years to live, it's not super long. Plus, it means that you could live a bunch of those years in not super great health, where you can't do anything very adventurous, right? So let's say I live 12 years, but 9 of those years I can actually do stuff, or much stuff, right? Whereas the last 3 years, maybe they completely suck, and I'm just like sitting around kind of trying not to die, but essentially waiting to die. So before you get to that point, because I don't know how long that is, right? If I'm on the very low side, if I have bad luck, then my life expectancy is 5 years. Maybe I have a good 3 years to actually do some adventures. Don't know exactly what the time frame is, but I do know that it's not super long. And I want to get in some of the stuff. I want to do a trip to Europe. I would like to do shark and or wreck diving, scuba diving stuff. I mean, I've been to Amsterdam for a day, right, and that was it, so I'd like to do something, some other stuff in Europe. I've been scuba diving. I have my scuba diving certification, but I haven't gone in the ocean. I definitely haven't gone. I've gone on a sunken boat and a sunken raft, and I've swam through jellyfish and caught a turtle. I mean, I did some pretty cool stuff scuba diving, but I haven't gone with sharks. And I would like to do alligator wrestling because it's crazy. It's a crazy idea. So I want to try to get those in, but travel is a major issue, right? It was not that long ago that I was afraid to drive more than 10 miles because it would throw off my neck. Just a bumping would throw off my neck, even less than that would. One big bump on our road, which we live on a dirt road, so you always get one big bump, would throw my neck off, and then, you know, and I wouldn't feel as good, I wouldn't be as cognitively cognizant, and it's an issue. It's an ongoing concern. So if I'm going to do a big trip, let's say to Europe, well, then you got a plane ride, and depending on where you go and whatnot, you got like, what, an 8 to 12 hour flight from Chicago. You got a 2-3 hour drive to Chicago. You got an 8 to 12 hour flight to Europe. And if you want to move around over there, I've got riding in cars or riding on trains even. So here's a big issue. If I fall asleep on a plane, right, and I kink my neck and I leave it there, I'm not going to wake up and be good. Like, my health is going to be way worse. My cognitive faculties will probably decline rapidly. My memory will decline rapidly. And then that puts you in a bad spot, right? If you're a long ways from home, you're a long ways from where you know how things work, you're a long ways from where everyone speaks your language fluently, you're a long ways from where you can easily get help and know people, and then your brain is not functioning very well. So it would not be a great situation. You're better than Africa, right? Just because, as long as you don't run into too many of the intense fundamental Muslim groups in Europe, in general, you'll probably be fine. So the idea is this could stabilize my neck on a flight or a train trip. But it'd be weird to wear this. It might be weird getting it through airport security, and then it goes so high up, it goes down on the back of the neck and so high up on the head that it holds it in a slightly wrong spot. Lordosis is actually good for my neck, a slight lordotic curve, so let's throw that one aside. So that one works pretty good as an experiment. It let me know that I might be heading in a direction that might be useful, might be feasible, so I got this one. Alright, that other one, I found one of those for 15 bucks, man, so super good deal. This one costs 50, so still pretty cheap. It's pretty easy to get $100, $200, $300 neck braces. This one, right, is obviously, it's just basically a frame, like a metal and plastic frame. And obviously it doesn't stabilize as much. It mostly is stopping this downward motion. But the thing with this is, this can go down the shirt, right? This thing goes up under the beard. Then this goes around the neck. Right? And then, flip the collar back out. It's almost not visible. It's, right? It's like gone, which is awesome. So it would not be as weird. It's not as big, so it'd be easier to carry, like in luggage, something like that. It supports my neck almost perfectly. I don't have it as tight as I should right now, but it supports my neck almost perfectly. So, like, this is me with a completely relaxed neck. Right? I'm not holding my neck up by myself at all. And when I tighten it up, it comes a little bit further up. So traveling on a plane or train with this might work. And so here's my idea in general. And I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the trip to Colorado, because the best alligator wrestling school in the country is in Colorado, of all places, in Mosca, Colorado, outside of Alamosa. And I think it'll be cheaper to fly, but we'll see how it goes. To fly into Denver, rent a car, and then drive the 4 hours to Moscow, and then stay in like a hotel. So that would be a good experiment for testing out the neck brace and whether I can really do a big trip with flight and driving and all this stuff and messing up your sleep schedule a little bit, yada, yada, yada. So, because I still don't have the normal energy that I had before, and I'm guessing I never will be at that work capacity or that physical resilient level or that energy level. It just doesn't seem likely. So that's kind of the experiment, I think. And obviously alligator wrestling is going to mess up my spine. All right, everyone knows that. But we'll see how well I hold up after that too, because then I'll probably stay that night and then do like a 4-hour drive back to Denver and then navigate all the airport and everything and then fly back to Chicago or probably Grand Rapids, and we'll see. We'll see how that trip goes. If that goes well, then I think I'm going to try to arrange the Europe thing after that. Money-wise, I'm going to have to stay at places for free, right? Because I don't have any money. I still have negative monies. Actually, because I did the whole stop paying the credit card company. For the one, they wrote it off. I paid off a bunch of those medical bills with the credit card, which is a stupid decision, but I kept thinking I was going to get better, and then I kept not getting better, so I kept not working. I'd used up all my savings to survive up to that point, and then I paid everything full and on time, and they lowered my credit score way down. And I'm like, called them and talked to them, and they were like, we have no control over it. And it was like, but like, you're penalizing me for paying my bill in full and on time. And they're like, hey, you know, too bad. I'm like, well, like, what's the incentive for paying the bill? They're like, well, they'll make it even lower. Like, it's not useful. I mean, I've never needed the credit score anyway, because, you know, I haven't had a need for it, but it's weird. They're literally disincentivized paying the bill. Like, what a weird policy. So I followed the incentives and went with it, and it's calculated in and everything. Very weird. It's an interesting process to watch. Anyways, that's the idea with the neck braces. Oh, in the place in Colorado, this alligator wrestling school, they heat the water year-round, because it's like Colorado, like, it gets cold, and then what do the alligators do? Do they, like, hibernate? Do they get really sluggish? And no, they keep the water heated year-round. They have to, for the alligators. So I'll see arranging that. I've been a little nervous about arranging that, because I'm very nervous about the trip and how I'm going to hold up and making the finances actually work and stuff, so we'll see. The job, actually, I have two job things that happened. One is I did not get the reading interventionist job at the elementary school in Reese Puffer. I don't know why. You know, I think a lot of it probably had to do with immediate perception. So, because I went in, you know, and get the hair and the beard combed, and I had a white button-up shirt and stuff. But everything went good when it was paper, it was online, and it went really good over the phone. And then I could tell when I was sitting in the office that at least the principal and another woman that runs the state and federal programs for Reese Puffer, so Cody and Pam, they were surprised about how I looked. And I'm guessing it's the beard, man. I'm guessing it's the beard. So they were hesitant right off the bat. And then when we started talking, they could tell I was articulate, and they seemed to relax a bit, but you can't get that first impression off. So if you really wanted that job, probably should have shaved, but I guess whatever. I could not get a straight answer out of them. There were 4 people. It was a 4-person panel interview, and there were 2 people from AmeriCorps from Grand Rapids, Grace and Ariel, and there's Pam that oversees the state and federal programs for Reese Puffer, and then Cody, which was the principal of Central Elementary School there. And they all asked questions. It went really well. The 2 people from AmeriCorps actually took transcripts of all my answers. Thought it went pretty darn well. I passed the girl that was obviously interviewing for the job, going out of the office too, and I emailed all of them afterwards, and I guess maybe I could structure the email differently. I asked essentially why I hadn't been selected or what I could have done better to be a better fit for the position. I phrased it something like that. And I got a response from Pam, and she said, you should ask someone else. That was her response. And then I got a response from Ariel, I believe from AmeriCorps, and it was a form response. You can tell she didn't fill it out. It's like the thing she's told by the company to send. So nothing. I got no feedback on the interview at all, and which was annoying because I emailed off for them, but whatever. And then recently, I had a woman actually contact me to recruit me for another online teaching company, UUABC, which is owned by a company founded in Silicon Valley, which would be nice because a lot of the Chinese companies are pretty darn sketchy on quite a bit of stuff. And I thought, oh, that would be nice going with an American company. And they'd probably have more people that speak English for customer support and stuff like that, so it might be easier. And I could probably get paid a little bit more. Because the one company I work for now, well, I work for I have a couple of students through one company, almost no students, but a couple. I get paid $14 an hour American. Then the other company, that's called A Top Class. The other company, Dada ABC, I get paid $121 per hour. I get paid at that rate. And then there's a bunch of details to it and whatnot. But the yuan has been tanking. So a few months ago, my payment was $19 an hour. And then today I think it's like $17.30 an hour, or something like this, right? So the won's been tanking compared to the American dollar over the last few months, which is lowering my pay because I'm paid in won. And I could probably get over $20 an hour through this other company. So I was interacting with the woman and whatnot, and she asked if I had a bachelor's degree, and no, I don't, and bam, automatically disqualified, which is very annoying. And I don't have a great way, or don't have a super easy way to resolve that, right? It's licenses and stuff like this are supposed to be hierarchical authority and power and competence and credibility structures to hinder people, and I'm stuck on that one. So that's kind of annoying, but I did look at recently, I found out there was an organization in Spring Lake, which is Christian Leaders Institute, which I'm going to go talk to them actually, because they offer associate's and bachelor's degrees in like divinity and stuff, which I've been interested in taking before anyways, but it's a freemium model originally funded by Rich DeVos, and it's like $1,000 is what you'd end up paying for an associate's degree, and maybe another $1,000 for a bachelor's degree, so cheap. Very interesting. So I'm gonna look at that just because I'm interested in doing this stuff anyways. I've had a number of times that I've experienced pretty severe kidney pain on the right side, only the right side. Now some people have proposed that it could be gallbladder pain, but it's right where the kidney is, in the back, on the right side only, and it seems to correlate with when I'm taking really high dose probiotics, but I take them in kefir form basically only. And I think it's die-off. I think it's die-off of other bad bacteria, so actually a good thing. Wow. I cannot tell what some of my notes. Like, I don't know what I meant by these. It's probably a cool thing when I thought of it. I stopped going to Toastmasters, the Muskegon group, on Fridays. One, because the structure of the group has been needing help for a while. It's been deteriorating for a little over a year, I would say. And then I've taken on more and more roles and responsibilities there to carry it to the point where I thought it would, get back up and going again. But it would require a lot more even. So if I go, I have to take on a lot of those roles and responsibilities, and I don't want to. I'd like to participate, but I would not like to carry so much of that. And then also I don't feel like I'm getting as much out of it anymore, and I don't want to go to multiple Toastmasters groups a week. And there's one in Montague and there's one in Grand Haven, both of which I would like to stop by every now and then. So I'm thinking once every 2, 3, 4 weeks I'll stop by one of the Toastmasters groups. Which means, every few months I'll get to the same Toastmaster group. So that's my plan for now. I went and saw Jordan Peterson, a University of Toronto psychologist, in Grand Rapids when he was here. Amazing, amazing. He was at Monroe Live, several thousand persons theater. It was sold out, and he got a standing ovation when he was introduced, standing ovation when he left. It's right near the Bob in Grand Rapids. The line for getting into the event wrapped all the way around the building. You have reserved seats, so you wouldn't have to get there early. Everyone got there early. It was crazy. That was a blast. Super good talk, too. Super good speech. It's amazing that thousands are already selling out stadiums and giving psychology lectures. It's a super interesting phenomenon. My website, I had the padding messed up. I realized for mobile phones and like tablets. I wish I realized that a long time ago, because now it requires a lot of work, and I've done part of it but not all of it, because I indented things by 100 pixels on both sides, which works great on a computer. But on a phone, 100 pixels is a lot, right? It's like it's like a third of your phone width. So the pixel, so it would look like just a stream of single words essentially, which is horrible to try to read whenever I indented things, which I don't indent everything on the website, but when I'm like writing about what I'm writing, and then I'm writing a story, I'll indent it and then write about what I'm writing again. I like doing that, and I'm going to keep doing that, but it was a horrible way to format it. So I had to change it to percentages, but I've only changed like half a dozen of the posts, and I have like 70 some posts, I think, or something like that. So yeah, so created a lot of work for myself there by not doing it right from the beginning. Didn't realize I was messing it up. I experimented with some other fermented foods, kombucha, which is a fermented tea, kimchi, which is another fermented cabbage-based thing from Asia that's spicy. And they seem to mess me up pretty bad. Actually, kombucha messed me up really bad. Really, really, really bad. So that was a bad decision. It's good for a lot of people, but my digestive system just could not take it. It was like a war of bacteria in my gut, and just, dropped my immune system. I got sick. I got pretty bad cold right then, like flu-like symptoms and whatnot. And yeah, kombucha tanked me, and I'm still recovering from it. That was a couple of weeks ago. That was a bad decision. I have a bunch of stories about students, but we won't go over them. I was talking with Liming, his name, and we were looking at astronomy. We were studying like constellations, stars, the life cycle of stars and the sun and whatnot. And he was looking at this thing, and he's like, all of this, what's the point of life? What can be the meaning of life? It was pretty hilarious because it's like 12, 10, right in there somewhere. And looking at the size of the universe and our insignificance comparatively, and wondering about the meaning and the point of life and whatnot. I sent him the links to my website for my philosophy articles about the most important question in philosophy, which is an existential question. I based mine off Albert Camus, the absurdist. He founded absurdism, but it's just a branch of existentialism, questioning the meaning of life. And he thought the meaning was, is life worth living, right? Most important question, which I think is pretty decent, because you got to start there. If life's not worth living, then you really can't move on to anything else. And then I tried to change that a little bit to build in the assumption that life is worth living, or if you don't think it is, to find something that there is worth living for. So what is life? What makes life worth living is the question I ended up proposing. That's part of my essays, my series of essays for the International Society for Philosophers, which I haven't been working on recently, but I will. A few days ago, I fell asleep reading this book, actually. Legend. And I fell asleep face down, reading on the bed, which I never used to read on my bed, but ever since my neck sucks, it definitely works best to lay on my stomach and read with my head up. I don't sleep face down, because then your head has to turn, and it really messes up my neck. I sleep on my back, or a little bit on my side, but mostly on my back, so I keep my neck nice and in a good position. And that messed it up pretty bad. I asked the chiropractor, Brent, when he's doing the adjustment, he said it was actually the occiput, right here at the base of the skull, that was really off when he was doing the adjustment, because he could tell too. And then I had my private reading client right after that. I was a little out of it still, and I drove like halfway to Whitehall before realizing I didn't need to drive to Whitehall. I needed to drive through Blue Lake to get where I was going. But that's going pretty good. The private reading student, which I don't even have in here, is we're really finding some stuff to make progress, so I'm happy there. The first few weeks I was kind of flailing around trying to figure out what would or what could work, but I'm making some progress there. My client that I was working with, I don't know, it might be weird to say they're a client, my student, my learner is what they're technically called through Reed Muskegon for the jail program, the exit program. He is doing his 2 weeks of work at Goodwill, which is part of this exit program for nonviolent offenders to get out of jail early and stuff like this. They do tutoring and classes and some work. So I'm doing lessons with him because he's doing his time at Goodwill, but we might continue afterwards. We'll see. I've been talking with Reed Muskegon about it. It's kind of a buffer in between. Let's see. Oh, another student thing. This one is crazy. All right, the student, his name is Barry. He's 8 years old. And I asked him, this is the only lesson I've ever had with him. We went through a book, and then we were going through question, discussion and stuff. And I asked him what his favorite book was. He said Silent Spring. All right, now I haven't read Silent Spring, but I know what Silent Spring is. Silent Spring is really what brought out DTE. No, that's not it. Whatever that chemical was that they used to kill all the mosquitoes and whatnot, but also softened eggs so that birds were dying off in massive numbers. That's what that book is about. He's 8 years old. His favorite book is Silent Spring. He read it in Chinese in 4 days. And he said, sad. So sad. It was a really weird conversation. It was really cool, though. I found out that I got approved for the first step in the process for De Montfort Publishing, a publisher based out of England, but I was talking online very shortly with an editor that I friended recently who seems to really know the industry, and he pointed me to an article that this De Montfort thing might kind of be quite scammy, and the information on Jonathan De Montfort is not very deep, so I don't know where or how that's going. My friend Doug's house party went really well. He's set up well. He's growing a nice little family, got a good job, and got a nice house too. Got a little bit of property, got some blueberry bushes. It was a cool little party. And then still shooting video versus Evie Finger. That was that one note that I couldn't figure out earlier. I just saw it. I still can't figure it out. De-escalate. I have a note on here about de-escalate. De-escalating situations is such an important skill, and it's amazing that, I like the intellectual dark web, and a lot of these guys are very good at discussing ideas, but a lot of people hate them for their ideas, and sometimes they're good at de-escalating, but sometimes they're good at escalating. And it's interesting to watch their skills and abilities, because they are pretty darn good at this stuff, from Jordan Peterson to Brett and Eric Weinstein to Ben Shapiro, Jonathan Haidt, Steven Crowder, Steven Pinker, Joe Rogan, all these guys. Super interesting how they can escalate and de-escalate. But I watched a video recently, because I belong to a self-defense group online, real self-defense, like actual intense self-defense, right? Not like martial art stuff, and which can work in a lot of situations, but not the most truly asocial violence, which a lot of people don't understand, right? Fighting is like, it's a social thing, is fighting, but then there's asocial violence. There's a big difference there. And there's a video of some guys arguing, and the two guys pull guns, and the other guy gets really aggressive after they pull guns, and the one guy says, right, if you cross this line, I consider this my property line. If you cross this line, I'm going to shoot you. And they just, like, it would have been so easy to escalate. All the one guy would have had to do, which the one guy was a short, fat, white guy, right, and his son, I believe, and the other guy was big, burly, right, hair slicked back, but a lot more hair than mine, so it looked cooler. And he's obviously a physically superior specimen, and it would have been easy. All he would have had to do was be like, hey, like, all right, I'm backing off, like, I don't like the situation, like, you guys, you stay over there, and you're right, I'll just leave. It would have been, it does not take a genius to de-escalate the situation, right? He literally could have walked away. And he did not. And he got shot. The reason we know about this is because his wife was shooting video on a phone. It was very interesting to watch her reaction, because a lot of people, I don't think, realize that violence can escalate into actually violent things, right? There's a big difference between a fist fight and getting shot in the head. And some people are okay with the fighting. A lot of people are okay with the fighting, but they don't realize that there's a line there, and the de-escalation skills are often a lot more important than the violent skills. So it just kind of blew my mind that she like took a second to react. I don't think she realized that her husband just got shot in the head and was not coming back, and then she completely freaked out. But it was like, yeah, that was really obvious that was coming. De-escalate. It's important. I'm still having some visual disturbances, which is interesting. So just out of the corner of my eye, I'll just see white or black flashes. Now, I don't have a bunch of twinkling stars all the time, and I don't have them often. I don't have them in the middle of my visual field. Just off to the edge, I'll see a flash of some sort of light, kind of looks like a reflection or something running by, something like that. And I wouldn't say it happens all the time, but it happens once every day and a half, let's say. Once every day and a half, something like that. I'm just, maybe once every day. So, which is part of why I think that I might just have permanent damage to the back of my brain and the brain stem, because a lot of the visual field comes from back here. Visual acuity takes up a lot of your brain capacity overall, but a lot of that visual stuff is in the back, which is where a lot of my stuff went wrong. And I think that might be why my heart rate is just staying elevated. You know, it's acting like the mid-80s is my lowest, best heart rate. I can't seem to get it below that. And then I'm still having these weird, some very minor, but some weird visual phenomena. So I think that just might be permanent. I still have a headache, right? I still have the headache that started in late December, or mid-December, early December, December of 2015. I still have a headache from then. It's significantly reduced, and I've learned how to take it. I've learned how to handle it with the intense meditation course, which I don't even do. It just permanently changed my perception of pain. It's kind of incredible. And Sam Ovens is a huge name in making money online, and he's worth a lot of money. I think Forbes has him worth like $60 million in like 6-7 years ago, something like that. He was living in his parents' garage in New Zealand. I found him a little bit after that, which is very interesting. He doesn't even seem to acknowledge that he learned all of his business stuff from Dane Maxwell, who started the foundation. It was a very interesting guy and rich as well. You know, he kind of accidentally developed business skills, which is kind of amazing. And Sam Ovens later learned them from him primarily, along with some other people. Jason Hornung for advertising, who was highly associated with Mike Dillard originally. It's interesting watching these things develop. But I've watched a number of these people, including Sam Ovens, go from not having very much money to having lots of money. It's interesting to watch. It makes me feel completely inadequate. But both these guys I find very interesting, Sam Ovens and Dane Maxwell, because they focus so much. They're like, just solve a problem, right? You're just trying to find a problem, identify a problem, and then solve it. And that's the key. That's the key to making money. So I've been thinking about those different problems I can solve, and how I could solve them, and whether I want to engage with them, and whether I can just be enthusiastic. Like, I'm enthusiastic about books. Right? I just am, about stories, stuff like this. So I've been starting about thinking that literary analysis website is like a subscription service, $10-15 a month. But then I'm like, how many people will be interested in that? And I debate whether I can actually monetarily turn that over or make that work or not. And then it's like, well, I could set up author websites, but I'm not actually very enthusiastic about that, even though I like authors. You could do marketing for authors. The writing thing, obviously I'm working on the writing stuff, not as much as I should, but not a great way to necessarily make a bunch of money that you're going to count on. And so I've been thinking about, can I reorient my mind to focus and enjoy and be interested in and be drawn to just the fulfillment of solving problems, because that's what Dane Maxwell and Sam Ovens did. Like, the stuff they're into, I don't think is super exciting, but they're super excited about solving the problems, which is interesting. And something that I'm not super excited about, but I do think is important, and it is a painful problem for people, is passing English tests as a foreigner, because a lot of times to go to college or get certain jobs, you have to pass an English proficiency test. And I've only read these, so I don't know how they're pronounced, the IELTS or the TOEFL. And these tests cost a couple $100, and they're pretty hard, and there's different levels you can get, and based on how well you do, a lot of times it depends on whether you can go to college or get a certain job. And I think I could structure a program to work with those very well. I also think I've been finding over the last couple of years that I think phonics is super important. I think basic learning skills super important. I actually know they are. All the evidence says that they are. Phonemic awareness, right? Either you come by it naturally and then people can ignore the fact that it's important, or you have to learn it synthetically and then people know it's important. But either way, it's actually important. And I do better with advanced stuff. So that's in the foreign language teaching. English as a foreign language. I do better with advanced students as well, and I think a lot of it goes to the fact that I'm kind of unusual. I was drawing monsters with a girl today, and she just loved monsters, and she wanted to disengage from the materials about buildings and what they're made out of, right? Igloos are made out of ice, and skyscrapers are made out of glass and steel, etc., etc. And she wasn't very excited about it, but I drew little stick figures hanging off stuff and climbing stuff, and monsters eating stuff, and a monster breathing fire, shooting down a butterfly. She loved it, right? And she was super engaged with it. Cyclops. I do some unusual stuff, and I'll just talk about unusual stuff too, and kids engage with that, but it only works if the kid is fluent enough to do it. So I'm finding this in multiple different arenas, but that's just an example, that I do better with the more advanced skills. So I think that would be true for English testing, possibly too, or maybe definitely. Which is perfect, because you don't want to take one of these English tests and score the lowest anyways. So when you start really preparing, really prepping for one of these English tests, you already have decent skills, so it might be a good avenue to go. And then I think one of the best ways to structure this program might be something like doing an interview once a week. So I go on the test online, right? I do one of the practice IELTS tests or something like that, and I go through it. And you see how I'm answering everything, and then I explain why I'm answering it like that, right? Because there's reading, writing, listening, speaking, and I do everything so you can see it, and then I explain why I'm doing everything, and then I get maybe online and take someone else to do the same practice test, and we go over why they're doing things a certain way, what they could do to do better. Maybe I sit down with someone physically, and we do like a podcast interview type thing, and we do the same thing. I think one of those a week would be tremendously useful for prepping for something like that. So just an idea I'm tossing around. I've actually got this list I made up yesterday, because it's like, I've got so many projects going, I can't even remember them, which is horrible, right? Because it means you're going to get almost nothing done because you can't focus. But this is the list I made up yesterday of different things I'm working on, and different ideas and things I should and could be working on, partially done. It's interesting. Anyways, pretty long video, 47 minutes right now, but that's what's been happening. Alright, so I'll probably see you next time. I think this was Jeff's Journey episode 76, so I'll see you for Jeff's Journey episode 77 next time. Bye!